The relationship set. What is it? A set that represents the potential impact that the PC's connection to a particular individual, or, if reputations are being used, organization, can have on the narrative. As a prime set, everything a PC does should be motivated by one of those connections in some way. They are acting for someone, because of someone, against someone, in memory of someone, etc. The relationship is not the same as friendship or teammate, as rivals and nemesis can prove to be significant motivators as well. In fact, the feeling doesn't even need to be reciprocal. Lois doesn't think much of Clark sometimes, but he could never forget her. So what does it mean? Well, all traits are potential factors that can play a part in influencing the narrative when it's in flux. Including relationships in your build, then, signals to players that they should always be thinking about how their actions relate to those around them. Whatever else your build may be about, it'll be about that for sure. If trait statements are used, especially with growth dice, players will understand that their PC's growth literally depends on encouraging a constantly shifting dynamic between who's a friend, who's a foe, and who might not even matter much anymore. Even more so if the relationship set is using a locked total number of steps. So here's a compare-contrast. In light of what the relationship set means, consider the following builds. Number 1, relationships as a non-prime set without trait statements, no locked total number of steps, and not using growth dice. Well, it's very possible that a PC's connection to those around them will factor into many of the narrative influencing actions they take, but not always. Here, the connections themselves are the important part, not the nature or intensity of them. This build might be about traveling the world for tournaments or investigating crime scenes, where a long list of useful contacts will prove helpful. Number 2, relationships as a prime set with trait statements, locked number of total steps, and using growth dice. Every time a PC makes a narrative influencing action, it'll include a reference to someone they know. Challenging trait statements will happen frequently as the social dynamics and perceptions change often. In fact, it's how the PCs will gain more power to influence the story they're in through growth dice. A best friend in one scene might become an arch nemesis in another, and then be nearly forgotten as a new lover captures the PC's attention. Some tips. Remember that relationships can be created on the spot for a plot point and then made permanent through growth, and that the best trait statements aren't objectively true. They're only what a PC thinks is true at the moment, and players want them to be easily challenged, and so should put their PCs in positions where doubts and loyalties are always changing. Conclusion: relationships are a great set to use when you want your build to emphasize connections between PCs and the people around them, including the other PCs.